So our next speaker is Mark Bloomquist. Mark's going to talk about how we might be able to use Dicamba and or Liberty with some of our existing products when that technology becomes available. I'll put it over here.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. As Todd mentioned, I am Mark Bloomquist, Research Director with Southern Minnesota Sugar, and we're going to take a look at the first look at some Dicamba and Liberty integrated with our sugar beet herbicides. First, we have a disclaimer with Bayer Crop Science, one of the developers of this trait. The trait we're going to be talking about is under development right now. It is not through regulatory approval. We do not have the ability to use it. We don't know exact timelines of when we may be able to use it, and all this could change in the future. So that will go on with the presentation. But first we're going to talk about the first herbicide trait in beets just a little bit. That was the Roundup Ready trait, the H71. March of 2005, it got approval for food and feed. The 2008 crop year was the first year that it was commercially grown in the United States, and that very rapid acceptance got us to 95% acceptance by 2009. So those of us that are old enough to remember the old microrates, these complex mixtures that Scott was just talking about. That's how we did our weed control prior to 2008 and 9. Glyphosate was almost magical. We sprayed it on, killed all the weeds. We didn't hurt any beets. It was a dramatic change for us. But there was trouble on the horizon, and it wasn't very long until we started talking about resistant weeds. In the survey that you just took a year, water hemp or glyphosate-resistant water hemp was the most troublesome weed. We had a little bit of progress. It was only on 97% of the acres versus 100% of the acres a year ago. But that resistant water hemp has moved all the way up the valley into Manitoba. It's become a problem in this whole growing area. But in addition to glyphosate-resistant water hemp in the Grand Forks, Crookston area, we have more and more glyphosate-resistant common ragweed that's becoming problematic. And glyphosate-resistant kochia has been marching its way across North Dakota into the Red River Valley in recent years and is moving south and east across the valley. So Bayer Crop Science and KWS have been working on the Truvera trait. The Truvera trait incorporates glyphosate as well as dicamba and glufosinate or Liberty into one trait package. We're going to be talking about, in the presentation today, about dicamba as a pre. The great thing about dicamba as a pre, it takes very little rainfall to activate it. All of our other soil residual herbicides take some rainfall. Dicamba will work with much less rainfall. It is our grass nurse crops, our spring cover crops tolerate dicamba. We can use those cover crops in this program. And dicamba really complements an ethylfumosate pre at the same time. In the years where we get really nice rainfall, we can activate that ethylfumosate and give us control. In the years we do not get that rainfall to activate our pre or get very little, a tenth or two, we probably got enough to get that dicamba activated. Glufosinate's been provided consistent weed control. We'll potentially call it a closer of a herbicide we can apply just prior to row closure, try and keep our weed size under 3 inches tall, and then pick our day when we have the environmental conditions that allow glufosinate to work the best. So just a quick summary of what we're going to be talking through today a little bit. The Truvera trait so far has proven to be really no injury issue on the sugar beets. What we've applied, the products we've applied on, on our sugar beet trials have been low injury, and the water hemp control has been really good for us. So in 2021, SMBSE started collaborating with Tom Peters and with KWS to trial this new trait within our growing area. We did both sugar beet tolerance trials that we'll talk about and also weed control trials. David Metler manages all these trials here in the southern area and works with Tom to do that. So the trial we'll talk about first was at near Renville, planted May 5th of 21. Small plot research and RCBD. Our treatments were Extendamax, 22 ounces at these leaf stages of the beets. Liberty, 30 ounces per acre at these leaf stages. Roundup Power Max is our check, 2 applications at 28 ounces. And there's our gallons we used and the nozzles, depended on what product we were spraying at the time. But we were looking for crop injury. And then we also were able to collect root yield at this trial. So here's our sugar beet injury from the Renville trial in 2021. On the left-hand side here is our different products that we used and the stage of the beets that they were applied. And you can see when you look across the numbers, there really was not any substantial injury with any of those treatments. And if there was a little bit of injury, it rapidly disappeared over the next week or two. Part of these where you see the 18% on the Extendamax at 2 to 4 leaf and 15% on the Liberty at 2 to 4 leaf could be that this is really early stage when we started trialing this material, and maybe it wasn't a complete conversion of that material. Starting again this past year, Tom did a crop safety trial up in the Red River Valley, and we'll conduct one again in Southern Minn this year. We do not expect to see injury. We'll probably add a little bit more to our trial to look at different mixes, but we expect it all to be really, really safe. A couple pictures of what we did see though. So we'll call this a Liberty flash that occurred in our sugar beets. So we had 6 row plots, and the center 4 is what's treated. But you can see there's a little yellowish on the leaf margins. Some of those, a few, shortly after we sprayed the Liberty, within 4 to 6 days afterwards. That injury disappeared rather quickly as the beets continued to grow leaves, and it was not a yield issue. We'll show you some yields in just a minute. This is Tom's trial up at Beltrami this past year. Again, there's 6 row plots, so the center 4 rows are the treated area. And you can see those center 4 rows, again, are just a little lighter green. Maybe there's a little tip yellowing on it following that 10 to 12 leaf application of Liberty. So that just might be an injury that we occasionally see on this late application of Liberty. We get a flash for a week or two, and then that disappears. Here's our yield data from that Renville trial site. So a few things. We were able to collect yield on that trial site. We brought our research harvester in there and collected yield. This is a regulated trait, so those beets could not leave that site. So we were not able to collect any quality data. That's why we're just going to talk root yield. Here's our products again, and our rates and active ingredient per acre at our leaf stages that we applied it. But when you look through that yield, very nice yields across everything there. Really very little differences statistically. 35.4 for the Roundup Power Max, and that has an A behind it. So all these treatments that have an A behind it are statistically the same at the 0.1 level. The one that's slightly lower yield was Extendamax at the 10 to 12 leaf stage. You know, maybe that's a function of this incomplete conversion that we had at the time. We'll get more information as we do the trials moving forward on a more up-to-date conversion of this variety. So I've been talking about the crop safety for a couple minutes. Now I just want to talk on the weed control for a little while. We had some objectives when we started the weed control portion of this. As obviously we want to compare our water hemp control from our standards that we're using to programs that contain Dicamba or Liberty or both. We felt that our weakness right now really is this early season water hemp control. If we don't activate those pre's, we miss those weeds and we can't get them back. So this is really where we're concentrating, especially with the dicamba. And then we want to see how dicamba and Liberty really fit in the program. Where is the best time to spray them? And then also, what's the soil residual herbicides, what's their role moving forward in these programs? So just a quick look at our materials and methods again. Really similar to how the materials and methods were on the crop tolerance trial. We had 2 locations near Bloomquist this past year, and then Tom had a location up near Sabin. Both small plot RCVDs. Here's our spray volume and our nozzles, 40 psi through a bicycle sprayer. But we're just looking at sugar beet injury here, like we were in the previous trial, and a visual weed control. There's no yield component to these trials. We're collecting visual weed control and then destroying them. When I contrast the 2 sites a little bit, our planting date, we're within 1 day of each other at the 2 sites. You can see at our Bloomquist site, we didn't have very nice rainfall quantities until we were past the 2 weeks. In that 2 to 4 weeks, we started getting some rainfall. At Sabin, 0.6 of an inch within a month, which is also on the light side. It was maybe enough, though, to activate some of our pre's up there. And then during our lay-by period, the rainfall was a little inconsistent. We had rain at the Bloomquist site. We had to wait for rain at Sabin. But another big difference as we go through the data is going to be hail event that occurred, 2 hail events that occurred at Sabin right about the time we were canopying up there. So as we go through data, I'm going to concentrate on the Bloomquist data a little bit more because it's closer to us, and this hail at Sabin affected our data some, but there's some pictures when they come around at the end that have a really good message about the importance of some soil-applied herbicides in that situation. So first of all, we want to look at our current programs that we're using. Treatment number 1 here is no pre with layered residual products and PowerMax. Treatment 2 would be ethofumizate dual magnum premix, followed by our layered residuals with PowerMax. And treatment 3 was just a straight post-emerge herbicide program. And these ratings then we're taking at 47 DAAC, days after application C. So we were, late July, mid-August for these ratings. And you can see the weed control under that program by that date was just not acceptable weed control. So what if we start looking at our Start Clean program? What we're thinking of as we get to incorporate some of these products into our weed control program, what does that look like? So first of all, we're at the Sabin site and Bloomquist site. We'll concentrate on the Bloomquist, which is the blue bars. This is our pre-applied program followed by layered soil residuals, the program that we're generally using right now. Because we're 28 days after the pre is where this rating is taken, the layered soil residuals are not a part of this yet. They haven't been applied or are just going to be applied. So we ended up with sub 70% control with our pre at the site. When we went to an Extendamax at 22 ounces as our pre-emerge, we had a really nice bump in weed control. You can see we went up to say 80%. When we did the Etho plus Extendamax combination, because at Bloomquist we did not get activation on that Etho, we did not get the rainfall to do it. Those numbers are really basically what the Extendamax was bringing into that combination. What if we start adding the Dicamba or Liberty into that program? How does that look again? The ratings again are 47 days after the final post application or 57 days. The blue bars we'll look at as Bloomquist. our strictly post-emerge program, again, was just not an acceptable program. When we added an Extendamax pre into that, you can see how much that weed control jumped. And then we put our closer, we'll call it, in, Liberty as a post-emerge, and again, a really nice bump in weed control from that Liberty at the site. So now we're going to integrate layered soil herbicides or a soil-applied herbicide as a lay-by type treatment in here. Again, our ratings are that late July, mid-August time frame. Our pre's followed by layered soil residuals, not acceptable weed control for us. We put the Extendamax in pre. We had the nice bump we saw before. We put the Liberty in as our closer. We jumped again, and these layered residuals looked good. I want to show a few pictures that Tom took of those sites. This is the Bloomquist site. We're 30 days after application C as one of these pictures. So the 30 days after the final post-emerge application. Here's our standard treatment right now, Etho Dual Magnum, followed by PowerMax Outlook, PowerMax Warrant. You can see we missed weeds in there. It's really not acceptable control. We didn't activate that Etho Dual up front, and we never were able to catch those weeds. When we put the Extendamax in as that pre-emerge, here's our plots. I'm sorry I didn't explain, we're 6-row plots, so the center 4 rows are treated, so rows 1 and row 6 are weedy checks. Really pretty good weed control and a really heavily pressured site for water hemp. We'll call it the Liberty closer on that application. Again, we really cleaned up that trial nice. We had a really nice canopy there. We have the Outlook in here with that Liberty application. Again, a very nice weed control and extremely heavy pressured situation. Let's contrast that with what happened at Sabin. So remember I mentioned that we had hail at Sabin about the time that canopy started occurring, and we opened up that canopy again. Here's our standard practice, Etho Dual, followed by the layered residuals. Again, heavy pressure site, not acceptable weed control for us. We had the Extendamax in, that looked really good at Bloomquist, and it helped here too, but we had nothing at the end there on soil residual after that canopy started opening up to reduce those late weeds. Here, when we put the Liberty in there, we took more weeds out. We did not have a layered product in there, soil residual type product that was holding new germinations or those small weeds that are staying under the canopy that the canopy may shade out. We didn't have anything to stop that, so when we lost part of our canopy, we had the weeds come through. When we had that soil residual activated there, we had pretty good weed control in a heavy pressured situation with some difficult conditions thrown at us. But it may not be a hail event that causes you to not have that canopy. Maybe you have some disease in an area of field, or you have spotty stands in an area of fields. All those type conditions could do the same thing that the hail did and allow those weeds to come through without some type of residual holding us down, holding the weeds down. So what are our next steps and our ideas for moving forward? We're starting to create awareness of this program. We want to continue to trial it and look at different combinations and how this is going to work the best in a sugar beet rotation, in sugar beets. We need to continue to reinforce the importance of diversifying our weed control plan. We cannot strictly rely on the chemical control part. It's cultural, it's mechanical. It's all those working together. We want to develop some stewardship plans and best management plans to slow down the development of resistance, right? There's resistance to Dicamba in other parts of the U.S. Glufosinate, there's starting to be some reports of certain weeds with resistance to glufosinate. It's a matter of time, and we need to do things here so we can slow that development. Because if these are going to be relevant technologies for us in sugar beets, we have to steward these products in all the crops. Just a couple pictures about some unintended consequences here. This is the field Tom came across this past summer up in the Red River Valley, a soybean crop with big water hemp aggressively coming through there. That field was in trouble for sure. When Tom came back a week or 2 weeks later, he'd seen that the grower had made a choice to spray Liberty across the field to try and get some weed control, try and reduce the seed bank that was going to get generated in that field. You can see that we didn't get a lot of weed control. There's a lot of green stems there. We're going to get new growth, all them green stems. We're going to get some, we maybe won't get all the seed production we would have before, but we're going to get some seed production out of those leaf axils with new flowers. What the guy was trying to accomplish, he partially did, right? He got some of the competition away for a while and helped the yield. But the unintended consequence here is we're driving the selection pressure against this herbicide really hard. And we're going to continue to select for plants, biotypes within there that can survive that glufosinate. So when we get to this point, I just want everyone to think about unintended consequences of some of these applications. So we need to steward these products. Some things to think about. There's more herbicide options in corn. Let's take advantage of these different herbicide options. We need to not rely on the same herbicide trait packages across our whole rotation. We need to rotate the traits through and have a plan for how that will work in your cropping system. I want you to think about the unintended consequences of very late applications. I understand the want to do that, and we need to get rid of those weeds if we can, but there is some consequences on some of those applications moving forward. And excellent management of weeds in our rotation crops will make our sugar beet weed control easier. So there's some prevention and management strategies that Tom found from the North Central Weed Science Society quite a few years ago, right, 1991. But it still applies today, is we want to apply herbicides with multiple sites of action, so we mix that up. We want to rotate our crop through, if we have different crop cycles, everything to start changing that weed spectrum we have. Avoid consecutive herbicide applications or consecutive herbicide trait crops in a row here. Do not forget about mechanical weed control practices of cultivation or tillage when appropriate. And regularly scout fields so that we can see those issues like that soybean field while we still have good choices to make and we don't get caught into that situation like that person was. So with that, I do not know if I have time for any questions or Tom does. Tom will be coming up next and we'll both be around the rest of the day.
Quick question for Mark.
Should be noted that Liberty application of soybeans would have been off-label. Liberty's only allowed up to 4 hours.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, thank you, Mark.